Got a 2001 Nissan Sentra. Might have a blown head gasket. Got exhaust bubbles coming out. Yep. Gonna be fun. First thing we're gonna do is remove the radiator and radiator fans. I'm gonna take off these bolts. Those ones right there. These ones right here. Remove the upper radiator hose. Go underneath the car, remove the lower radiator hose. Disconnect all the radiator fan clips, and then pull it out. Also disconnect the automatic transmission lines down there. Easier to do from below. Okay, now we have the radiator and radiator fans out. Time to take off the exhaust. Don't forget to remove all the O2 sensor clips. We're gonna disconnect this pipe right here. Might need a crescent. And next, we're gonna take out the coils, 10mm, and the valve cover, total crap Phillips. If you can replace them while you have it out with regular 10mm, go ahead and do it. Okay, let me show the PCV hose. Pop that off. These are usually pretty hard, so see if it actually comes off. Oh, nice. There's some action. Okay, screwdriver. Pop it up. Next is the spark plugs. Okay, we have the passenger front wheel off. Gonna take off that splash guard and get access to the harmonic balancer bolt. Spark plugs are out. We're gonna set the timing. Okay, so we're gonna mark the timing now. You have this notch right here and that little dot behind the link. And on this one, you have this dot on the link. Okay, you want this one at 2 o'clock, this one at 10 o'clock. We are going to mark, there's a little bit of white out. Going to mark where the chain is on it. Also right here. You'll see why in a bit. Now it's time to move the AC lines out of the way on the power steering pump reservoir. Now that we can press these out of the way, that's just to give our hands more room. Take off the cam sensors, and the cam sensor right here, and this one back here, the solenoid. Those two clips, and then we're gonna undo all the tins holding this little cover in. If you see, there's actually a little gap right here. This cover pops off. Okay, once you get them all off, there's a little tiny pry part back here. Actually, that came off a lot easier than normal. Here's what it looks like. Here's the bolts. So you gotta have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bolts. Those are just alignment pins. You don't really need to take out the cam sensor or the exhaust cam sensor or the intake cam sensor. You just leave them in. So here's where it gets a little tough. We have the marks lined up on the chain. You have this 22mm bolt and a 22mm bolt. If you look around here, you'll see the hexagon shape, or this is the grab point for the crescent. And you're gonna be pulling pretty hard on this to get it loose. So we'll get it off. Okay, this one's loose. Time for this one, same thing. Press it in the back and turn it. Okay, now that those are loose, we're gonna leave them in. Time to take off this bearing and guide. Always have a good magnet to get the bolts that do fall, because sometimes they're just gonna fall. Once you get that guide off, you'll notice there's 2 more bolts underneath. self-explanatory, you don't need to mark them.
Okay, next is the cam holders. If you get close enough here, you can see they are labeled for exhaust 2,
E3,
exhaust 3, 4, 5, and of course
arrows always pointing towards the number 1 cylinder or towards the timing.
towards the timing, and these are labeled I, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just don't mix them up. Make sure they go back in the same spot.
Now, since the cams do have to come out of their holders, out of the bearings, we are going to loosen up these. So, unlike the Prius or the Toyota engine, we don't need to lock these cams down from turn. If you take the tension off this, that'll prevent them from wanting to shoot the valves down into the pistons. It'll leave any unwanted turning. As always, do the middle ones last. Okay, now with these loose, we can actually remove these bolts and remove the cam sprockets, but we also want to make sure the chain doesn't fall down. So we're gonna support this with a bungee cord while we're taking this off. Okay, we have these cam bearings off. Next is gonna be the tensioner. Okay, we use these hose these hose pliers from Harbor Freight. What we're gonna do, we're going to reach around that plunger of the tensioner. We got a good lock on it. And we're gonna hold that while we're removing So by doing this, that'll prevent the plunger from falling down into the block. Put that away. Now time for the tensioner to come out. This is what I'm talking about. Okay. Now when we take off these cams, remember the bolts are loose. We're gonna keep tension on the chain. We don't want the chain to fall down, because then it runs the risk of jumping on the crankshaft. Tension up. As you can see, the chain, the cam can only go back on one way. A little point right there, right here. So this one's up. Next is the intake. Now that this is up, we got keep tension on it. We have a wire just hanging, so we can tie it up. And it'll be out of our way. Okay, now we can pull the cams up. Pop it up a little bit. There we go. Exhaust. And the intake. Okay, now time for the ground wire. Alternator bracket, slide it over. Okay, next is the 10mm bolts holding top of the head down, and one right there, 1, 2, 3, and the 4.
Okay, first step, we're gonna check the intake bracket and exhaust bracket. Let's do the intake first. can see pretty well. That's this bar I'm touching. That's one of them. And there's another bar just like it. Let me get the camera in here. Right behind the power steering bracket, right here. There's two 12mm bolts for each of them, so that's 4 total. 2 near the block and 2 attached to the actual manifold.
Okay, got the 4 bolts out, 3 long ones, 1 short one. It's gonna be right there. Time for the Allen head bolts to come out. The number 10 Allen socket, and you should have room. You don't need an Allen wrench. You have room for the socket to actually fit in. We're gonna loosen up from the outside in an X pattern. And then we're just gonna go one pass slightly loose, and then the next pass we will fully loosen and remove the head bolts. Okay, head bolts are off, the head is up. We really aren't disconnecting it from the intake. If you want to disconnect it from the intake, you can. Just remove that bolt, and there's various 12mm nuts on the side. Also, removing the water outlet is pretty obvious, so it's fine. We're gonna clean this up, put a straight edge on it, make sure it's good. Cast iron block, you know what's good. The engine ran great, just a small head gasket leak, but yep. Okay, just measured this head. This head looks like it has been machined before. We can't really machine it now because it would take off too much, but we put a straight edge on it. It's actually perfectly straight. This head right here is measuring at so 4 inches, 645 thousandths. That means at one point, machine shop took off about 12 to 18 thousandths of an inch. So there's no need to take the head to the machine shop. It's not really gonna do anything. They can't take more off. They'll adjust the height. But like I said, it's flat anyways. It's aluminum head. It's definitely less likely to crack anyways. So we're going to finish cleaning up the bottom, the mating surfaces, and get the new head gasket on and put it down. Okay, everything's clean. I'm gonna unhook this guy. Let's get the head down. Of course, the head goes this way, not that way. Slide that through. Over the guide. And down. Make sure it matches back up with the alignment pins, as always. Put that guy back up. Alright. Lined up nice. Now we're going to lower it down nice and evenly. We need 2 sets of hands to do this though. So, see you on the way back. Okay, now if you're having trouble getting the washers down in there first, before the bolts, because washers can't go straight in, get a nice thin screwdriver, hold it with your finger, place it into the hole of the head bolt. Now, we're going to do this one right here. Place it into the hole of the head bolt.
Okay, we got the head down. I just zipped it down with a gun just so it's flat and not gonna move. I'm gonna show you the torque sequence now. So you start in the middle, either one of these, and then you're gonna make an X pattern and do all of them just going outward. So you start with 22 pounds, do everything 22 pounds, then you're gonna go and do everything 43 pounds, and then loosen it all completely, and then start over again, do 22 pounds. But this next pass, you're gonna do 55 degrees. So you can angle it, that's about 45, everybody knows that. You just add about 10 degrees and tighten all those another 55 degrees, and then it'll be set. Now, the little guys over here, the 10s, after you do all that, you're gonna put these down to 74 inch pounds. Inch pounds, not foot pounds. They will snap, they're just little 10s. Inch pounds on these, 74 inch pounds.
Okay, head is torqued down. Now time to put the cams back on. Don't forget the marks on the cam bearings. I'm going to collapse the timing chain tensioner now. It sits in the engine like this. To collapse it is much like most Japanese vehicles. You have this little lock right here, this guy. Kind of push that down as you collapse this in. We're using a small Allen wrench. You can use a paper clip or a pin. As long as you're able to pull it out and nothing stays in there, you'll be fine. But that's collapsed now. Okay, we have this one lined up and this one's lined up, but we have to turn the camshaft so the pins that fit with this line up. So you'll feel when it goes in, just like that. Now we can put this bolt in more so nothing slips out. Take the slack out. You're going to pull on this guide right here, this tensioner guide. That's how it wants to come out, like that. So going back. Now time for the tensioner. Okay. Very important, double check your marks before you remove this pin. So that one's on, that one's on. Got the tensioner tightened up. These have not been tightened yet. Now we're going to pull the pin and run. Tightening up. Basically going to be the reverse of how we loosened it. Make sure when doing this, chain doesn't jump. Chain shouldn't jump either way though, because you don't have enough room on the side for the chain to jump. Got the cams. The camshaft sprocket's tight. The head's torqued down. Now for the cam bearings to be tightened.
Okay, with the timing set and all the cam holders are down and tight, everything's good to go. Time to put on this cover, but you can see there's a lot of leftover silicone on here. That could get bunched up and you'll cause an oil leak. So make sure you scrape both mating surfaces of the cover and on the head here before you put it on and apply a new coat of silicone. Okay, don't forget all these little 10s when you're putting the timing cover back on. We showed you the positioning and you should have set them aside anyway.
Okay, the timing's done, the timing cover's done, timing chain, everything's good now. The rest is going to be putting it all back together. The valve cover, the exhaust, you're going to slap the radiator and the radiator fan back in. Probably going to bang this out to give more room. As you can see, it was in an accident. The rest is pretty self-explanatory. Okay, about to crank it, see how it starts. Go ahead.